Hello, and welcome to the Brand Storytelling live streams for August 5th, 2020. I'm Drew Parkhill. Thanks for being with us. These live streams air every Wednesday, and our mission is to deliver the most timely and relevant information for our community of brands and their storytelling partners. These shows are designed for you, so please let us know how we can best serve the community by suggesting future topics and guests that would serve you now as well as into the future. You can drop me a line. I'm Drew at BrandStorytelling.tv. Very excited about this panel and welcoming back our guest, Rich Thomas, as well as host Ty Braswell, and new guest Heather Shaw from Vita Modus. With that, I'll pass it over to Ty.
About this panel because not only do I like going to live events, but just being a part of creating live events. So let's us welcome Rich Thomas, who is VP of Communications, Culture, and Content at Insomniac Events, and Heather Shaw, Founder, CEO, Chief Designer, Vita Modus. Hey, Rich. Hey, Heather. How you doing?
What's going on, everybody?
Hi,
How you
good.
doing?
How are you?
So we always do these prep calls before these panels, but I just buckle in, folks, because what these folks are going to talk to you about is something that I'm pretty confident that a lot of you out there haven't quite seen the nuances of that. So I want to start off because I want you to get to know Rich and Heather. And so Rich and Heather, either one of you choose who to jump in first. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the company that you work with.
Okay, great. So my name's Heather Shaw, and I am CEO of Vita Modus Design Studio. And we are a production design and innovative concept design studio out of Los Angeles. We predominantly focus on the entertainment industry, but also have artists and disciplines in many different areas of design, looking at environmental design, production design, art direction, branded events, and many different design disciplines.
Rich.
I'm Rich Thomas. I'm the VP of Culture, Communications, and Content at Insomniac Events. This is my 7th year working for Insomniac, but I've been attending Insomniac events and Pasquale's festivals since I was in high school. So been in it for a minute. Yeah, that's where Heather and I actually met.
Me too.
Insomniac's been around since 1993. Started producing very small festivals and warehouse parties in Southern California. To date, we have produced major festivals in India, in China, in South Korea, in the UK. Our largest festival, EDC Las Vegas, in 2019, brought in about 185,000 attendees per day to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But in addition to events over the last few years, we've sort of broadened our horizons and have been introducing the Insomniac brand into clothing, merchandise, sort of lifestyle events, and as well as Insomniac Radio, Insomniac Television, and really becoming a full-fledged media company to support the festival business, which has been very exciting over the last 5 months.
The title of this panel is Now's the Time for Innovation in Live Events. There's no two ways about it. And my experience of being in the music industry and working with various different live events, the two folks that are on this panel represent two companies that innovation is everything about what they do, not only the creative visual innovation, but technology and how the participants, both physically at their events and virtually, how that they serve that audience and always pushing themselves to really try to find how to make it better, how to make it more interesting. It's very hard to describe EDM events if you've never been, but we're going to give it a shot on this panel. I'd like to first ask the panel to respond to this question. What is the opportunity especially for brands that are watching this video that may have never been to an EDM event before and know something about it. But what is the opportunity? And go into it. How is it different than sort of the traditional concert integration that sponsors do for pop acts and for rock acts? Talk to us a little bit about what is the essence, that DNA that is different.
I'll start. I think first and foremost, you are reaching a demographic that is hyper engaged. They're hyper engaged with social media. They are very engaged in terms of being mini brand ambassadors for themselves. If there's a product that they respond to well, they are much more willing to pass that information on to their friends than maybe an older demographic or a demographic in a different music subculture that is just kind of there to see the experience, rip the ticket, stand in front of the show, watch it, and then go home. Not only, I think, is the demographic very sort of willing to spread the word, but it's a very authentic demographic. So if you reach them and if you're able to sort of tap into what they're interested in, you have the ability to lay the foundation to have a sort of a brand ambassador of your own, for life. So I think first and foremost, it's the demographic that attends the events. And then I think second of all, when most people experience a festival or a concert and there is a sponsor or an activation happening somewhere off to the side, that's kind of where it is. So they're on the periphery of the event. They're very clearly branded as to what they are, whether that's a beer garden or some sort of technological feature, someone who's there sort of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole in a music festival. The beautiful thing, I think, about electronic dance music events and festivals is that the way in which sponsors connect to the experience, they become part of the experience. There's no real passive opportunity to be there and sort of be on the sidelines. Everyone's in the game. And I think that's really, really interesting and exciting to potential sponsors, to people who want to do more than just write a check, put up a 20 by 20 and have people maybe walk through. We work very closely with our sponsorship team to create these experiences that are very authentic to the crowd and really put these sponsors in a position to succeed with their brand. And like I said, not just have them be on the sidelines, but have them really be in the game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Rich, for sure. I think the core of the EDM audience really, is at the heart of it, a very adventurous audience. Where EDM began was definitely in the underground, and the basis for adventure and for exploration, it was a real driver for the audience to kind of get to these new adventures, get to these new events. And what you find too is that once, the first time someone visits an EDM event, generally speaking, they're committed for life. It's quite the commitment. And, I think that says a lot about who they are as a person, that they are committed to things. And once they do connect with something in a really authentic way, they will stay committed to that, whether it be a brand or an artist or a musician or your friends, your community, and your family. And I think that there's a really big opportunity there also, because this audience is extremely forward thinking and really interesting in taking the next step and finding the new technology, finding the new adventure, finding the new artist or musician. And so you could also be the new brand that they've discovered. And I think that there's a really engaging and committed audience that is there as well.
We talked a little bit before in prep about the different examples of brands that did a great job and had the courage to be creative for these different events. Rich and Heather, can you share some of your own personal experience of and what you think are good best practices and brands that have really understand what the EDM demographic and community is like and how the engagement is different and deeper and stronger?
Sure. Red Bull has always been a great sponsor for our events. They not only, the product is very in line with our demographic and with the events themselves, but they found very creative ways to integrate with us on an experience level as well. And they're always up. I mean, if you know Red Bull and work with them, they're sort of always up for a challenge. They always want to do what's right for the event and what's right in our position for the culture. You'll hear a lot of people talking about the culture of this music, the culture of that music. It's very important for us when we partner with sponsors for them to understand what the culture of dance music is and how it's something that goes a little bit deeper than just the last 10 years of sort of EDM explosion. We've also had great relationships. I think one of the ones that just popped into my head was EDC New York. Not to, I think maybe mid 2014, 2015, we partnered with Jägermeister, and they had an amazing activation where it wasn't just a 40 by 40 where you could sort of have your drinks poured by people in nice Jägermeister shirts. They worked with our performance team, and they had characters that were fully done up in makeup. They built a tree house. It was a 2-level experience where you could hang out on the bottom. You could sort of walk to the top. You saw a nice panoramic view of the entire festival grounds. I think if you wanted to, you could get from the second floor to the ground floor by going down this cool slide. It was a full-on experiential, immersive alcohol sponsor integration, and it was pretty impressive because I couldn't tell if whether or not they had brought their own performers or they were working with our performers. It seemed like it could have been just a stage in and of itself.
Yeah. I was also going to say Red Bull. It's definitely a brand who really does understand the dance music culture. And, that at a certain point of my career, they did reach out to us and they sponsored a Vita Modus project, like they sponsor athletes. So they gave me free reign to do what would inspire the night, is what it was called. And it was a very amazing experience between the brand and a creative. Felt very inspiring and open, and so that was a really a great brand as well. There's another experience is the Land Rover festival that just happened. I believe it was last year in Palm Springs. They did a really great job to launch the new Range Rover. And it was they had like test tracks as well as a full music festival. And most of what they had lined out for the entire festival was about the adventure and exploration that Land Rover is a big, proponent of. So they were, having these different experiences all day long that was, journeying through the desert, or finding new adventures on how to survive in the desert. Or it was a really interesting and amazing branded event.
So now this community, your companies, this industry now has to deal with everyone's on quarantine or lockdown, and the pandemic is in our minds, everything that we do in conversations, in arguments, and the like. Both of your companies have made a very serious investment in virtual events. So now we get into what it's time for innovation in live events. Rich and Heather, talk to us about what that journey's been, because the pandemic happened and it wasn't like we got a playbook to figure out how to respond to it. Everyone had to figure out how their lives had to adapt, how their business models had to adapt, and more importantly, where they could find the courage to be creative and push the envelope, especially in this community that really needed these virtual events to keep the community, not that it wasn't going to be active, but these events people plan years in advance, that both of you are involved in producing. So talk to us about the challenge, but more importantly, the victory, the opportunity of what has happened because of where we all are at with the pandemic.
Sure.
Go ahead.
uh, in the past, technology has always been the disruptor. New companies, new technology have been the reasons why companies like ours have had to adapt quickly. The disruptor here is the virus. The beautiful thing about what has happened, I could say that there's a beautiful thing in terms of our industry, is that it's pushing people to really innovate in not just amazing ways, but in very quick ways, and in ways that require a lot of collaboration and sort of taking an industry, especially with dance music, that's been sort of very all over the place with a lot of different players, and pulling a lot of people together to really try and figure out a solution as a group and as a culture. I remember when our first event that we were sort of staring down the barrel of as things were closing at the beginning of March was an event called Beyond Wonderland SoCal. And we decided that we were going to postpone it. Obviously, we didn't know how long anything was going to last. And I remember we were sitting in a meeting and it was all sort of the executive team and members of the social team. And we were all having these side conversations, and Pasquale just kind of, Pasquale Rotella was our founder and CEO, kind of popped out of his chair and was like, you know what? Why don't we do like a virtual rave-a-thon? And everyone kind of stopped their conversations and kind of did a look off to the side. Long story short, that idea ended up coming to life in a really short period of time. And to speak to what you were saying about people planning, people getting outfits, preparing, when we broadcast this virtual event, and I can go back into a little bit more detail later about what the event entailed, we were pretty amazed at the response from the community, not just in terms of numbers and things like concurrent views and total number of viewers. We had people tune in from over 100 countries when we looked at the analytics and the stats. We had people posting using hashtags on social media of these rave caves that they had set up in their living room with lights flashing, and they had dressed their kids if they had kids, or if they were quarantining with parents or family members. Everyone was kind of getting in on the action. And what it reaffirmed to me as someone who's been part of the culture for a long time is that this culture does transcend age. It does transcend sort of demographics, and whether you're having a watch party with your friends in Malibu, or you're just kind of sitting in your little walk-up apartment and it's just you and your roommate, we really noticed that people were needing these events to feel reconnected to the community. It was also nice for us because we gave people something to do every single weekend for 8 weeks from March until early June when we had our EDC Las Vegas virtual rave-a-thon. Because we felt that we had a responsibility to our demographic, very young demographic, to stay home, stay safe. We had messages along the crawl of the broadcast, encouraging people to sanitized hands in the air, like little things like that. And we really not only wanted to entertain people, we wanted to remind the demographic that I think it was harder than most to stay home and to quarantine, that this is the right thing for our community to do until we can kind of reunite on the dance floor again.
Mm-hmm. Heather, what was it like as a designer, an artist, to approach the challenge of virtual events?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting journey for sure. Vita Modus as a concept design studio, we focus mostly on the physical space, and our full design process has a realization at the end where we build it and we have an event inside of it. So, we do a lot of work with China. We do a lot of concert TV shows in China. And fairly early on, we saw the writing on the wall, and we started looking internally at what our digital capabilities were and what assets we might have that we could, start making some solutions for the entertainment industry fairly early on. In our process,
when you say fairly early on, are you talking March early on, or even before that?
No, so it was about early February and
really?
End of January. Yeah, because we were already losing some work with China, and we were looking at our digital capabilities at that point, trying to refocus.
Amazing.
And at that time, we looked at our process, and in our process, we R&D with clients, we sketch up projects, and then we quickly get into CAD, into Rhino. And from Rhino, we put everything into the gaming engine. So with clients, we'll do 2 or 3 different designs for them. And then we put it in the gaming engine as a pre-visualization tool, which for us means that we can render really quickly and give clients a full PDF of a lot of renderings. As well, we can put it in VR, and we can show Shakira what her world tour is going to look like, and we can do we can use a lot of tools with Unreal in terms of pre-visualization. And so at that point, usually we take one road with the client, and we have 2 other designs that aren't necessarily used per client. So we have this full Google Drive chock full of Unreal production designs that are in the gaming engine. So we're like, how can we use these as a tool for the entertainment industry? And so one of the first projects we did, which I could share screen and show
Well, before
that.
you do that, I just want to, for the audience that may not understand what the word Unreal means.
All right.
Talking about Unreal from Epic Games, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's the gaming engine that is used to build Fortnite, and it's a gaming engine that we've been rendering in for about 6 years now. It's a wonderful tool. They change and upgrade every year, and there's so many possibilities inside the engine, obviously, which you can see with a lot of the things that are coming out inside of Fortnite. So we've been utilizing the tool and having a really interesting time during the pandemic inside of the gaming engine.
Yeah,
for sure.
You're going to show us something here that's going to be very exciting. Relative to Epic Games, and everyone laughed at all the kids playing Fortnite, but Epic Games has done financially quite well with this game engine, and more importantly, creatively, bringing a lot of different people into their world, including the Mandalorian series, which was used a lot of that, and introduced a phrase I'd never heard of before, LED walls, which I know that that's something that both of you know quite a bit about. But for you storytellers out there, this is something that's not on the horizon, that's actually happening right now. So Heather, without further ado, you want to show us some technology stuff that and walk us through what you're getting ready to show us?
Yeah, so let me share screen here. Is that going to work? Oh, there's a disabled. I'm going to need the ability to share screen. But I can kind of brief you while I'm getting that ability.
You're all set now. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, so what this is, we design and build the base pod at EDC every year, or at least for the last 5 years. So let me know if you can see and if you can hear. I don't know if the volume's there. We designed the base pod for the Insomniac EDC at Vegas. And so we've had the base pod in the gaming engine. And the narrative on the base pod is that these are our space monkeys. The sculptures that we created have come from space and landed at EDC for the event. So they're really large sculptures. And what we've done is, inside the gaming engine, we put the space monkeys inside of a jungle scene. And then we started live streaming into the scene just as a test. So we call this our live tool. And what you're looking at is Darla, who's our art director, who's also a DJ. She is being live streamed into the base pod. So this is real time from her living room. And she just has a green screen set up behind her. And then we connected with the content teams who are creating media for the physical stage. And we asked if they could then live stream from India, because they're in Mumbai, into this virtual space. So we then got the content teams activating the walls and flashing the walls real time with Darla's music. And then also we've got lights in the scene that are mirroring the physical lights that exist in the real world, and a lighting designer from his living room activating the lights in the scene with a Grand MA, which is the lighting box that they use at front of house to control the physical lights. So everyone's piping in from their home space into this gaming engine world to create a show. So what you're looking at is like the full front of house team working to create a show.
And
that's this
and
live tool.
how does this not cost millions of dollars and take months to pre-produce?
It does take some time. We had the sculptures already because we had created those already for the base pod. But if we had to make those sculptures from scratch, it would probably have taken quite some time. And it does take a good amount of budget because, again, what we're trying to do with this tool was start hiring the people from the entertainment industry again and get people working and be able to, like, you know, build up the entertainment industry from home.
So how difficult is it to do this live portion?
It's fairly challenging. The live portion can take a minute to really put together. And the most important part for, in my opinion, is the production design, the narrative, the story, and having a purpose for it. You know, like there's a really interesting, if you do it without a production designer in terms of the concert or the show, I think that it misses a little bit of that typical stage and like the typical show that you see. We've also built out digital lightning in a bottle, which was something that we design and build stages for lightning in a bottle as well. So inside of this this full landscape, we built out what the festival really typically looks like. And these are structures from years past, they're structures from the present, and together with the Do Lab, who throws the digital lightning in a bottle and physical lightning in a bottle, we put all the CAD models into one space and really created a landscape that is like the ultimate dream for the festival. And since we've been working with them for about 15 years, we know like what the locations, each location they were searching for, what was the dream location. And so that's, one of the tools that we've been working on is how do we build out these festival landscapes, create all of the structures for the festival, and then start live broadcasting into a festival landscape. So you've got an interesting new 360 YouTube space for live broadcasts that can be kind of creative and innovative. It's quite the rabbit hole we've been going down.
You authentic right down to the Kubota carts that are off to the side.
Yeah.
So, Tyler, just say one thing. I think what's so remarkable here is everyone who's in the live events business got into the live stream business very quickly. Right. But I think if you've tuned in to a lot of live streams, I think what you've seen are sort of three levels, right? Level number one, which is usually what you see with a lot of more traditional rock and pop. The person in their studio, maybe their home studio, playing a guitar, singing, maybe a couple of people doing something together in a living room, to slightly more sophisticated setups with visuals behind them. I know there's a lot of DJs who have gone live on Instagram or Twitch that have their sort of studios decked out a little bit extra to sort of have some eye candy for people to look at. And then you have something like this, which represents a fully sort of immersive experience where people aren't just pressing play, if you will. And what you're seeing is something that's been built over time, and then someone sat back and hit the space bar and the DJ is just performing in front of a green screen. Like Heather was saying, you have lighting designers who are triggering things in real time. You have guys and girls who are doing visuals that are going up on these screens in real time. So you're not only creating an authentic, dance music festival experience, you're also employing people who wouldn't normally be employed by a typical sort of live stream event. This is bringing a lot of different things together and kind of creating jobs again, which is really exciting for me to see something like this.
Without leaving your house. Without leaving your house.
No parking.
100%.
So you definitely have built a legacy, both of you. of engaging brands to collaborate with you to create amazing live events, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was it talking to brands that want to continue to talk to this community, the EDM community, but now the only offering you have is virtual events? What was that like?
It was challenging at first, I think, because everyone was sort of feeling around in the dark together. You know, what opportunities do we have? We can't do anything in real life. What can we do to engage with your demographic virtually while everyone is staying home? You know, you mentioned earlier what we did with Postmates for the EDC Las Vegas live stream. So while you were watching the live stream broadcast,
Rich, can I interrupt for 1 second?
yeah,
For
sure, go
folks
ahead.
that don't know the 3 letters EDC, it means
Yes, does not mean everyday carry. It stands for Electric Daisy Carnival. Electric Daisy Carnival started in Los Angeles and has grown over the last 25 years to the largest dance music festival in the world. Like I said before, we welcomed 185,000 people to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway per day for our 3-day festival last year. We will be doing it again next year, and looking to make it bigger and better than ever.
and
So yes, that's the EDC background.
And EDC is not just in Vegas, right?
Correct. We have EDC in Orlando, which is our second biggest festival domestically. EDC also happens in Mexico City, towards the first part of the year in February. EDC Orlando usually happens at the beginning of November. So you sort of have your big event in Mexico the front part of the year, EDC Vegas sort of in the middle, EDC Orlando happens towards the end of the year. But we have had EDC in Korea, we've had EDC in 2 locations in China, and in the past, India, the UK, Puerto Rico, and I'm forgetting one, Brazil.
Fantastic.
EDCs everywhere.
Heather, you had something else you wanted to show us, right?
Yeah, so you know, there's a number of, like, right currently what we're looking at here, there's you know, this is a stage that we designed for Lightning in a Bottle in 2010. So this is us using, again, sculptures that we've already built in the physical space in the virtual world. But then we've got video, or we asked for video from the members of the community who go to Lightning in a Bottle, and we had them give us and send us green screen video, which we were able to implement into the scene as well. So we've got a lot of engagement with the community by being able to pipe them into the scene. We're currently working on a real-time app to pipe in audience into these virtual scenes so we can have a real-time virtual dance floor. And in terms of, like, brands inside of this sort of new virtual space, what the fun we're having right now is there's a lot that is, you know, now we can defy gravity, we can defy budgets, we can defy scale and engineering inside of the virtual space. And really, you know, just as this technology is exponentially, you know, the growth rate of this technology is exponentially growing, our abilities inside of the virtual space are exponentially growing, and there's a lot of ability to put branded experiences inside of the virtual space. So you can cruise over to a branded experience that's in one of the structures, or you can cruise over to a branded experience that's, like, bigger than life, or something that you've never really thought of before inside of this virtual space, as we're trying to discover new and innovative things inside of this virtual space as well. Yeah.
Is there one more thing that you were going to show us of how it works live?
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. So we can pipe in, we put together a bit of a presentation so that we can show you what it looks like live. I'm going to turn my camera off real quick and jump into virtual Lightning in a Bottle.
You're going to go to virtual Lightning in a Bottle right now.
Right now, I'm going to go virtual.
How are you doing that? Rich.
I never thought that Tron would intersect with the dance music world more than it has now. It's pretty phenomenal. Heather and I were actually talking back in the beginning of March when all this was sort of happening, because, like I said, I've known Heather for a long time, and what she's been doing at Vita Modus. And she was one of the first people I reached out to because I knew that she would be cooking up something extra fun with the capabilities that they have.
Wait a minute. What's going on here?
Yeah, so here we are at the Tokyo Monster stage that we designed in virtual lightning in a bottle.
I'm gonna have to interrupt. I'm interrupting so that no one thinks this is a fake and pre-record. Correct, Heather?
No, this is definitely not pre-recorded. Yes, so yeah, we're here like we built this structure with a big waterfalls and things floating in space and defying gravity, you know, particularly for the event. And what we're looking at right now is me just piping in live the way we want to bring in the audience live for our virtual dance floor. And you know, it's pretty fun because what we think we can do with just even with this virtual lightning in a bottle file, we can start bringing in people into the yoga tent. We can bring people and speakers into the speaking tent and into the talks, and we can bring in the music stages and all this stuff just into one virtual world. So it's pretty exciting.
Let's talk a little bit about, there's a preconceived notion and probably confusion about these virtual events. But if you would, Heather and Rich, talk about how it was a very historic moment when Travis Scott, in essence, released his new record on Fortnite. And everybody was like, wow, this is the first time that ever happened, and that's amazing. But a year before that, Marshmello did it too. And if my stats are correct, Marshmello achieved 10 million concurrent users, whereas Travis Scott had 12 million. And Travis Scott, if I'm not mistaken, reached something like 27 million users, audience, unique. And they watched his concert inside of Fortnite 45 million times, and the album debuted as #1. What happened in your world when people that are not in your world, and it makes it into mainstream media about this event with Travis Scott? It was innovative, but it really was following in the footsteps of something that happened a year ago. Talk a little bit about that, if you could, for a minute.
Yeah, sure. The Travis Scott event, as well as the Marshmello, was definitely really interesting for the event industry and for entertainment industry. And I think it's definitely a pivotal moment in terms of the virtual space and what we can do inside of virtual worlds. I think for our live music audiences, you know, what we've kind of been talking about is that, you know, everyone kind of wants an adventure and an exploration alongside the event or the music industry, like to be entertained. You want to go somewhere with your friends, and you want to be inside of a world where you can communicate with your friends. And I think it's a little disconnected for the live music industry because, you know, not everyone knows how to jump in as an avatar, or you don't always want to stay connected to your computer. You want to stand back and enjoy the event. And I think that while we are super interested in seeing what the next step is for Fortnite and what they're going to build with the Party Royale, we're also really interested in using the same technologies to kind of start piping people in to this space so that they can be there together and as well communicate and not be necessarily an avatar, but come from home into the virtual space and communicate with your friends and dance on the dance floor again.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. I'm loving everything here. And the fact that I've proven that this is really live, no fakes. Rich, how many virtual events has Insomniac done during the pandemic?
Oh, including the one that we have coming up this weekend in terms of major festivals. I believe we've done 8 or 9.
Wow.
But that's only for major festival brands. Every weekend, and sometimes multiple times a weekend, we've done live streams that are a little bit more focused on 1 or 2 specific artists. Or Insomniac Records will do a live stream event on any given weekend. But for the purposes of what we're talking about now, and festivals like lightning in a bottle, we've done a major festival event, I would say about 10 times. I think a hard summer barbecue that's coming up this weekend on the 7th and 8th of August will put us over about 11 now. And these are things that happen multiple days. EDC Vegas was a 3-night event, starting going about 10 hours to 12 hours a day.
Which leads me into something we talked about a little bit, and this will be a good thing for us to chat about as we start to finish up the time that we have for this panel. It seems like to me that these virtual events are perfect for brands that are not quite sure how to collaborate with the genius teams that both of you all have to engage with this EDM audience. But it's a smaller investment than it takes for something like Electric Daisy Carnival, and the production's different. But it seems like it's an incredible opportunity to put their toe in the water to find out if they can do some brand storytelling that fits very nicely to reach this very rich engagement audience. Can the two of you just chat a little bit about that as we start to bring some closure to our panel?
Yeah, I think this is a very exciting time for us, because when something has been one way for so long, you have a tendency to get complacent. It happens with everyone. It happens with promoters. It happens with brands. I think what this has created, and the innovation that these virtual events have brought to this community, I think you're going to see the innovators and sort of the renegades rise to the top, which is always great for dance music, because dance music was sort of a renegade culture to begin with. And I think what I would tell a brand, if a brand were watching this right now, even if you don't know how a relationship might work or how a product may fit, we do, or we're figuring it out very quickly. And I would refer to say quicker than any other subgenre of music, because it's not just about the experience with the artist who's performing. You know, what Heather is showing us right now is representative of the fact that at a dance music festival, the people are just as important as what you're seeing in front of you on a stage. Looking to your left, looking to your right, walking through a crowd. It's the people that you see, that you talk to, that you interact with, that really make the events, you know, so special. And I think brands aren't used to being able to tap directly into the community like that. So I would challenge brands to say, come to companies like ours with sort of blue sky idea for what you would want to do, or what is it important about your product, and what is the most important message for your brand to communicate. And the collaborations that we can work on together to make those things happen, I think are really, really interesting. Those conversations that we're having now are some of the most interesting and fun conversations that I've had in a while, because you can't sort of sit back and rely on the traditional things that you used to rely on in the past. And like Heather mentioned, the idea of a 40 by 40 space, try 400 by 400. Light up dance floors, paths. Brands aren't sort of restricted to the same physical space as they were before. So the conversations are very interesting.
I love the word challenge. Mm-hmm. So Heather, you are such an amazing creative person, and the team that I can only imagine just were able to blue sky extraordinary ideas. You've worked with a lot of brands. Rich, you've worked with a lot of brands. Are there any brands, any categories that you wish they would come and experiment with you, that you haven't seen them in any of the EDM events you've done, because you think that the platform and the community could really deliver on some amazing engagement and extraordinary creative ideas?
I definitely think there's a lot of opportunity, especially these days, with brands inside of the space. There's a lot of artists, musicians, festivals, and entertainment opportunities in general that are really just actually searching out brands right now. They're really looking for the right brand to connect with in a bigger way than they ever have, because it's right now there is a big need for a connection with brands to help build out what the future could really look like inside of the space. And I think there's a lot of future forward brands that like a lot of high tech brands, a lot of really innovative brands that can do really well in this space in terms of connecting with the audience and building also a foundation. Even in this tough time, we can build a virtual foundation that can be physically built at a later date. So we can start building immersive events now that can then be physically experienced when the festival does happen, or when the in real life experience does happen. And I think we're also looking at, our team is really, I feel really lucky to have the team that I have. Internally, everyone pivoted super quick and has a lot of incredible digital capabilities. So I feel really lucky that we have this digital team. And inside of that, we're also, our bread and butter is that we're a concept design studio. So we're also looking at ideas of how we can take what could be this virtual event, pair it with some in real life experiences that are happening at the same time, that are safe, innovative, adventurous, and can also take people out of the house in a very safe way, but not in big groups, to kind of adventure and find a new thing. For example, like with this virtual festival, can we also build out or project in like 6 different cities in the US, project the festival on a building in the middle of the city, and you can drive to that particular event and turn your radio station there and watch it there, or you can drive to multiple different spaces to see different stages, and kind of, how can we create in real life experiences alongside the virtual space, and what's next, what's new.
And Rich, you mentioned the Postmates. I mean, Postmates, basically with the virtual events, you could order food for yourself and your friends so that you could have Postmates deliver the food while you're watching the content.
While you're watching, correct. They gave us an option, or they gave consumers an option of having free delivery or having a certain amount of discount off of the meal, which is really great, because again, it was encouraging people to stay home, to not go out, and they were a great partner for us for EDC Vegas. I would, to piggyback on what Heather was saying, tech companies are companies that I think traditionally you think of an event, you think of alcohol sponsors, you think of maybe some automotive sponsors, you think of obviously food sponsors, makeup sponsors are very popular for us. But I think tech companies have always maybe shied away from dance music events because they don't really know how to integrate into the experience, because what you're seeing around you is so technologically amazing to begin with. How do we fit in? How do we make an impact when you've got a 150-foot flame cannon shooting up from the base pod, and you've got these massive LED walls all over you and cryo going off? How can they compete? Well, now they can compete because they sort of are the keepers of this space that some of us are very new in right now. And the other thing I'll say too is that the companies like Insomniac, that are also media companies, are producing a lot more episodic content, whether that content lives on the Insomniac Events YouTube channel, but we've been producing original content outside of just the festival experiences for years. And one of the things that we're looking for are people who want to partner with us to create more content that is sort of culturally relevant for a very active, enthusiastic demographic.
And did you mention there was one, maybe the virtual event, that a COVID testing company had also come in and experimented with sponsoring? Was there, did I get that right?
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah.
That's.
Mhm.
I think that was Heather.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna say also there is some interest in a few testing companies that were kind of R&D different events, different event ideas on how we can start creating smaller events that start to
Right.
open up the entertainment industry via using the testing companies. So they're looking at sponsoring some of the events. Mhm.
Totally contextually relevant. Well, as we bring to closure this panel, any final words from our two amazing panelists?
I'm just excited to see what Heather and Vita Modus are doing. As we continue to sort of satiate the audience and our demographic with live events and virtual events. These virtual events that Heather's working on, even when we go back to being able to produce festivals in real life, these are still going to be happening. I think there's a lot of people that think that this is a band-aid to tide us over to when we can all party on the dance floor. It's definitely not. I know Insomniac is planning on continuing to produce virtual events, rave-a-thons, and work with companies like Vita Modus to sort of provide people with entertainment that doesn't involve, driving 4 hours somewhere, going, buying a hotel, getting all the food and all that stuff that goes along with an actual experience. These live streams and virtual events are definitely here to stay. So I would also let people know who are thinking, well, maybe we're too late to jump in. There's so much stuff that's already in motion. This is going to be happening long after things go back to normal. I really do think it represents the next wave in entertainment. And I really do think that dance music and promoters and companies like Heather's are going to be at the forefront of that wave.
Heather, any
Piggyback on that. Yeah.
virtual reality for us?
Yeah.
Literally?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on that, I think there's definitely, it's tough to say that we've been really inspired during this time, but, we really have been looking at not only like the tools that we're trying to create to help push and solve some problems in the entertainment industry, as well as help bring, happiness to people and entertainment to people during a tough time. But also what's fairly inspiring at this point is that my past in the EDM industry, as well as the passion with music and community that has been built around it, has really changed my life. And I'm really excited that the potential now for these festivals like EDC and for Lightning in a Bottle and for Burning Man, and so all of these festivals that now are kind of shifting and refocusing into creating content can now reach a lot more people, which means that those people's lives could potentially get changed as well. And the content curators who are at these festivals, who are really amazing content curators, get to have a broader audience and who, now can spread the word and life change even further. So for me, it's a really interesting and inspiring time, because the message at these festivals is generally, quite life-changing and transformational. So I'm excited for that to extend into an even broader audience.
Excellent. Drew?
Excellent. Thank you so much. And, Heather, thanks for sharing a glimpse at what you've been working on. And Rich, thanks for sort of opening the hood on what's going on at Insomniac and getting a closer look. I think that, we've just scratched the surface of all the things that are going on right now and all the things that are to come. So looking forward to seeing what the next couple of years hold for live events and virtual and electronic and alike. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ty, for hosting. Thanks, Rich. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Heather.